Hello, welcome to Dev Summit. My name is David Vitale. I am a product engineer on the ArcGIS API for Python team. Today we're going to be talking about automation for your Web GIS. Just by a show of hands, how many people would call themselves a GIS administrator? All right, you're in the right spot. Good. How many people only administer a enterprise deployment? So no ArcGIS Online, just enterprise. How many people just online? How many people both? All right, most of you, cool. That's about where I want to be at, so good. So again, welcome. This is automation for your Web GIS. Just to give a quick outline, I'm going to talk for about 20 minutes, then I'm going to open the floor for questions. Feel free to interrupt me during the talk if you have any questions, shout it out. We can keep this a little more informal. But we're going to go over Introduction to Python API if you haven't heard of it, a few sample notebooks that are shipping with ArcGIS notebooks that are really good automation candidates that will come with Notebook Server, running Python in context outside of notebooks. I'm going to do a deep dive a bit more into the plenary talk that I gave on Webhooks, and then field your questions. So for those of you who don't know, the ArcGIS API for Python is a Pythonic GIS for your web, a Pythonic, sorry, let me start over. A Python library for your Web GIS. It's useful for a lot of GIS administration and DevOps, like a lot of you are here for managing users, groups, and content. It's also good for analysis, for some spatial stats and some other type of GIS more focused problems, as well as content publishing. You can go straight from shapefiles to publish. So it is basically Python for your Web GIS. If you haven't used the Python API before, this is kind of your home base. One of the most important classes in the API is the GIS class. You connect to your portal from there, and then you do gis.content to manage your content, gis.users to manage your users. It all starts at the GIS object. This is a brief overview of a lot of the modules inside of the ArcGIS API for Python. We have the GIS module that I showed you before. There's also on the analytics side geocoding, geometry, geoprocessing. There are widgets, so if you run this inside of a Jupyter notebook, you can look at maps inside of a notebook, as well as some feature analysis, raster analysis, all that sort of stuff. So I'm going to jump straight in now that we've gotten a brief overview into some of the sample notebooks inside of ArcGIS notebooks. So this is my 10.7 stand-up that I have. You will notice on the top there is a new button called Notebook. So if you have 10.7 and you have ArcGIS notebooks, this is your hosted notebook inside of ArcGIS. You can edit a notebook and share it as a portal item. So this is ArcGIS API for Python code running right now. I am connecting to my home GIS. And once that runs, I can type any code that I want. There's me. I'm a product engineer inside of this. I can do gis.content.search for everything, see what I have. So you're running Python API code from inside of this as portal items to share it. What I want to talk most about, though, are the sample notebooks. So inside it, if you missed what I just did, inside of this, there is this button called Samples. So hosted notebooks comes with a lot of sample notebooks that you can use. And there are some spatial analysis ones, but there are also a lot of content management and administration notebooks. So there is, I'll read off a few. From an administrative standpoint, giving notifications from Python, that's a very useful thing. Managing inactive users, setting up license expiration notifications, validating data stores, checking web maps for broken URLs, validating item metadata. So a lot of good samples that you can use. And I'm going to walk through one right now, which is sort of the basis for a lot of automation, which can be really helpful from a Python standpoint, which is notifications. So what's the great thing about Python is that since you are writing the code and you're controlling a lot of what you run, you can really, the sky is the limit, like I said in my plenary, about what type of behavior you can implement. And from Python, you have all these rich Pythonic libraries to do requests to endpoints, to call into external services, to give out notifications. So you can have some kind of really cool functionality that I'll get to a bit more later. But first, let's just talk about the most simple use case. Let's say I just want to send out a notification to somebody on some event. So this is a sample notebook that comes with ArcGIS notebooks. So I'm just going to run some of these cells. I've had to do some configuration in this notebook to set up with my Gmail account that I'm going to be sending emails out to. So I have defined this function called send email SMTP. So SMTP is an email protocol that allows you to send emails to any address. It's a very common protocol. A lot of email clients probably use SMTP in the background to send out emails. And Python comes with a really good standard library called SMTP. So as you can see here, I have a Gmail account set up. I specify the SMTP server URL, what port it runs on. 587 is a standard TLS for SMTP, which is HTTPS, more secure. My email account that it's running from, my username, my password, which is hidden from all you, so you don't hack into my account. I then can make a connection to my SMTP server, set up everything, send it out. And so I sent an email just right now to my Esri email. And if I pull that up, where is that? Here we go. I received an email from, here's the new one. I received an email from my Gmail account telling me, hello world. So this is a really powerful tool for automation because instead of you having to run a script, oh, look at the output, oh, let me go email this person on it. Let's say a portal item you have is messed up and you want to send the owner of that item some information on it. You no longer need to qualitatively look at that, say, oh yeah, that's Shirley from this department, go send them an email and send it out. You can do all this from code to save yourself a lot of time. Let me go back to my notebook. So that's how you send emails. One cool feature that a lot of US cellular providers provide is a lot of phone numbers actually have an email address associated with them. So let's say you're on AT&T. If you put your phone number right in here and then send it to @att.net, you will receive a text message for that. So any type of email for that for AT&T works with that. There's a lookup you can do here for sending notifications to certain people on different networks, Verizon, T-Mobile. So that's email and text messages. But what Indu showed you during the plenary today was how to connect to external automation platforms. She used Microsoft Flow. I'm going to show you how you connect to Zapier, which is another automation platform, to send out a tweet or send out an email through Zapier or send out a Gmail. You can do a lot of different things through Zapier. But I have this function designed that goes into my Zapier tweet webhook URL, which is the webhook that I hit. Instead of this being called automatically through webhooks, I'm manually invoking this through a REST request. And if I were to send out this tweet through there, does anyone have a message they want me to tweet out? Favorite emoji?
Happy birthday, Mercator!
All right, whose birthday is it?
Mercator's birthday.
Oh. I have a computer science background, so I'm not well versed in a lot of GIS. Is that how you spell it? Mercator? Sorry. I have a computer science. I have computer science. Wait, MERCA. Okay, sorry, I thought you said E. All right, well, we'll pretend like that didn't happen. This is my workplace Twitter, and as you can see, I have now wished a happy birthday to Mercator, and the Twitter world knows that I spelled it right, so they had no knowledge of this happening. So that's one just example about how you can use Python to connect to a notification service to make a lot of your automated workflows a lot easier. I'm going to show you one such example, kind of going into the GIS realm of things now, which is this one. So like I said earlier, there is a use case of you find a portal item, you find something wrong with it. Previously, you as a GIS administrator look at this portal item and say, this doesn't look too right. Let me email the owner of this and see what their thoughts are. You can use this notebook, which would do all of that for you. Since you have a portal item in Python, you can look up that item's owner and that item's email from that owner. So this sample is going to go through web maps and is going to check for broken URLs. So oftentimes you'll make a web map, and it'll be a great web map shared to a group, and it'll reference an external server that's a different ArcGIS server set up. And let's say that server goes down. So the web map itself contains a reference to an outdated server that's been migrated. How do you catch that when you have hundreds of web maps in your organization? It can be an overwhelming process to manually click through all of them, look for the broken URLs. So I have written a script that basically does this for you. So if you notice, I'm sharing a lot of code from that previous notebook that I showed you. I have the same send email SMTP message function, that will send out an email for this. So I have this flag that will check all items, going to set that equal to true. You can also configure it to only check certain groups if you don't want to test developer groups or anything. It's going to email the web map owner. And now here's the actual function of this. So the most core part of this is testing a URL to see if it's reachable or not. Requests is a Python library that allows you to do a post or a get on certain endpoints. And basically what this does is just do a get on whatever URL I pass it. If it's good, return true. If it's bad, return false. This function is going to be called for every single layer on every single web map. So you build this sort of iteratively. You solve the most simple use case, then you move from there. So we have that. Now we're testing all URLs in a web map. So let's say you're given a web map item for each layer in all the layers that have URLs, because not all layers have URLs. Some are feature collections that have the actual features stored in them. Check if it's reachable. If it is, append it to this reachable list. If it's not, append it to this unreachable list and return it. So now we have a function that takes in a web map and returns a list of reachable and unreachable. We have a helper function that will print out some information associated with nice little graphics. You can see a little check mark or an X for success or failure, just sort of a helper function to make things more readable. Just another helper function. One more. This is important code, but it's not too relevant for the high story. And then our main function. So our main function is going to check all items in our portal. Going to take only if it's a web map, because we don't want to run this on anything that's not a web map. Test the URLs in the web map. If there's anything unreachable, say, oh, this is unreachable, notify, and then this handle unreachable that I glossed over up here, this sends out an email to the owner of the web map. So we're going to run that. Run this one. And now, so we've only defined functions. We haven't actually written anything. Now we're going to run main. So as you can see, the hash is changing for each of that. Oh, look, it found an unreachable one. It has now sent an email to me. I'm the owner of this web map. And it's now set that out. So it's checked all the items in our portal just like that. Very quick, very fast. And it's automatically sent out an email to me telling me of this. And look at that. You can even see in the corner, I have received an email from my curator bot that is saying this web map is broken. You can view the web map here. Here are the reachable layers, and here are the unreachable layers. So it gives me a link to open it up and view it in a browser. It's just the URL of it. So that's one example about how you can create an automated workflow to help with content management, to see, is there a broken URL in this web map, how to automate all that so you can just run this script, tell the owners of their web map to look at it, see if they can resolve it on their own, to save you a lot of time of having to manually go through and do a lot of this. I'm also going to show you.
Can you schedule that just to run like once a month?
I will get to scheduling soon. But yeah, so right now with the hosted notebooks at 10.7, there's no scheduling process built into it for the notebook itself. But what you can do is you can take that logic and export it to an external Python file and then run that through a scheduler. So like Windows Task Scheduler, I use Jenkins. I'm going to show that in a little bit. You can use other different automation platforms to run that Python script. But yeah, this would be a very useful thing for just to run this once a month on all the new web maps that were made and see, oh, is this a broken web map? Notify the URL. So yeah, I'll get to that point in a bit. Let me go back to my notebooks. So that was a content management example. I am going to show you another example of how to validate user profiles. So as I said, the Python API helps you manage users, groups, and content. Here's just a really quick example of a sample notebook that right off the bat, once it loads, you'll see it has this little icon on the top that says ready to run. So you don't even need to think anything about that. You just run all cells, and it will run everything from start to finish. Give it a few seconds. And what this one is going to do is basically look for certain attributes in a user profile. So if a user has a description, a thumbnail, or access, and it's going to print out a quick little graph of all the users in our org that have that. So if you've noticed, I am the model GIS analyst user because I have a thumbnail and a description, but my coworkers, Bill and John and Andrew, do not. So if you see them at the Python booth, tell them to add a thumbnail to their portal. But it also printed out a CSV of this, shared it as a portal item as a way to generate a report for what users have what certain attributes. So you can do this, you can modify this logic to work on groups if groups have certain metadata, on items. So Just a lot of good workflows that come with the hosted notebooks platform and a lot of good samples that you can do to help automate a lot of your GIS administrative workflows. So switching gears a little bit, I'll go into scheduling and automation. So I showed you everything in a Jupyter notebook, but you can run a lot of Python from automation platforms like Jenkins. Who here has heard of Jenkins? Show of hands. Great, yeah. So if you don't know, Jenkins is an open source sort of automation web server, you can think of it as, useful for continuous integration, continuous delivery, CI/CD. Basically what happens is you schedule Jenkins jobs that run on it runs anything you want it to run. In this case, I'm running Python scripts of things. So in your case, if you wanted to have that broken web map URL functionality running, let's say once a week, you can make a Jenkins job that runs once a week and runs Python on that script. Provided you give it the right credentials, it'll run everything, send out that email, and could be like that. So I'll show you one such job similar to that. This is the internal Python API Jenkins server that I have running. Let me log in really quick. Thought I was logged in. But so there's a few different ways you can schedule jobs. So this is our nightly tests. It runs every day at 4 p.m. So if you notice down here, build triggers. I'm going to build, that's what Jenkins calls for run, build this periodically. This is cron syntax. Many of you have heard of cron from the Unix sense. Basically, this is saying run every day at 4:30 p.m. and it runs all of our integration tests and reports to us the output. You saw a nice little graph in that back end, the test result trends. So you can have console output to HTML output. You can do a lot of rich things in Jenkins to run things automatically. So that's an example of something that runs on an automated every time at 4 p.m. You can also do something like I'm about to show you, which is configure it with Git or GitHub. So what we have is every single time someone pushes a change to master, let me go to this one actually. Every time someone pushes to master, instead of just building it automatically, it will, every time something is mastered, build then. So you can integrate this with sometimes when somebody puts a file in an FTP server in a certain location, you can have Jenkins trigger a Python job that looks at those results in that FTP server, sees if it's a CSV file, if it's a spatial CSV file, publish it, and move on. So there are some asynchronous workflows that you can do for publishing of Python scripts. A CSV that has spatial information in it, so like a latitude or longitude, yeah. Just something like that. I have a computer science background, so I'm probably gargling some of the GIS words. Sorry, Mercator. All right, so I showed you one such way that you can have a way to trigger a Python script. I'm going to show you now webhooks. So if any of you saw the plenary this morning, I gave a section on webhooks. So one thing that's good about Jenkins and some of these things is that you can run it every day at 4 p.m. And for some tasks, like running tests on something, that's a good thing to have run every single day at 4 p.m. That's called polling. Every day at 4, you run it, you run it. It's very segmented, very just like that. And that's good for some things, but if you want an asynchronous workflow, using ArcGIS Enterprise Webhooks is a great way, because you no longer need to constantly say, hey, do I need to check this? Hey, do I need to check this? You can just say, I want to look at this item. Whenever this item is updated, I want to do something on it. I'm not going to keep on pinging you, hey, is your item ready? No, okay. Hey, is your item ready? No, okay. And do that for 4 days until the item is ready. I'm just going to tell you, item, when you're ready, send me a notification, and I will run a Python script. I will do whatever it is that you want me to do. So I'm going to show you how to add a new webhook. It is this right here. So in any portal that you have set up, /arcgis/home is the URL for the portal in the web viewer. /arcgis/sharing/rest is the start of the REST API. So if you are a portal admin, I'm sure some of you have seen this before. You log in to this page. You can go to your org ID, which is, so now I'm in the REST API logged in as the portal admin. I can go to webhooks. This is in 10.7. And I can create a new webhook. So this is the essence of creating webhooks. In this example, if I were to trigger a webhook on any item getting updated, but only items, I would do something like this. So /items will run on any item getting updated. /groups will run on any group getting updated. /users will run on any user getting updated. I'm going to show you the doc for this. If you get 10.7 Enterprise, this will lead us on your help pages. It gives you a little bit of background about how to actually manage webhooks, the payload URL, use cases, and then these are all the events you care about. So this is what I said about items. This is trigger event for all items. If you want to look at just one item getting triggered, you put that item hash in there, and now you're looking at that webhook, or that item getting triggered. Just one certain group ID. If you just care about when users are added to a group, let's say a user gets added to the group and you have an external service you want to register them with inside of your organization, you could set up a webhook for when the user is added to this group, trigger this process that sets up an email for them at this location, gives them access to this FTP server, a lot of different use cases like that. User updating things or getting disabled, getting enabled. So you have the create webhook here. Let's say I have a Zapier app set up. Basically what you do, and this is the wrong page. If you basically create a new Zapier, here we go. So this is a Zapier webhook that will create that tweet that I was sending you earlier. If you have the webhook set up, you have the webhook URL, you just copy it from here, paste it to there, and say you want this webhook to run on any time an item is updated. You create it. Just add a name. There on items. And now my Zapier example 2 webhooks is set up for that Zapier event, which I can configure from there to do the asynchronous workflows that I want. I want to take some time for questions, so that was a very condensed version of automation for your Web GIS, and thank you so much. Questions? Go.
So the webhooks are for the on-premise portal, not online?
Yeah, so at 10.7, webhooks are included for enterprise. I don't know the specifics of webhooks with ArcGIS Online. I don't want to give you any false info, so go over to the ArcGIS Online booth and ask them there. Yeah.
So in a security session, they had talked about disabling HTML's view of the portal as a security protocol. So is there any other way in 10.7 to access this menu for creating a webhook?
Yeah, so it's just the REST API, so there is an endpoint for register webhook. This might get a little meta, but you can actually use the Python API to register a webhook, because the Python API is just a shell around the REST API. So yes, there are other ways to do it. You and then you.
Is there much burden to the server when it's making hooks?
Yeah. So from the coworkers I talked to who implemented a lot of the webhook stuff, there is a very high limit for the amount of requests that the enterprise can send out for webhooks. If you go talk to the enterprise booth, they'll give you that specific number, but it seems to be rated at a pretty high number. Whoever had their hand up over here, yeah. So you need to be an administrator to configure a webhook. Once it's set up, when a user makes an update to an item, it'll run. So admin to configure. Can you speak up a little bit? I'm sorry.
Do they have to use security? Can the portal security, does the portal security govern it, or do you run it without having to worry about the security that you have on hand?
So as far as security goes, the enterprise folks will probably know a lot more about the specifics of that, but if you can run this on HTTPS, and also there is this option. Webhooks has this concept of secrets. So if you want your URL to need a certain key to only if this URL is hit only with the secret will it run, you can configure it there. But yeah, you.
It was mentioned during the summit that this is another server machine to run the notebook side of things. Mm-hmm. Is that included with all 10.7 enterprises? If not, how much?
The ArcGIS Notebook server is a separate server that's, you could think, you federate it from your enterprise. So that server app can run on the same machine as your enterprise. It can run on a separate machine, but yeah, it's that kind of workflow. Was that all your question? Or?
If it's not free, how much does it cost?
Cost, go talk to the enterprise folks. Yeah. Anyone else? You and then you again.
If you're not ready to upgrade to 10.7, can you export those to standalone Python scripts to your notebook?
Yeah, so all the sample notebooks that I showed you, it's all just running Python API code on Python API version 1.6, which is available publicly. So you can implement all of this and run it locally. Yes. You? Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, so a lot of the samples I showed you were sort of evolved from previous samples that we have. We might be releasing some of them publicly. I don't know the specifics about how all that happens, but it's all functionality you can write with the Python API. I didn't do anything too complicated when I was writing these samples. Anyone else? Yes?
I guess a question about the code itself. So when you were about the notebook, one of the things that I was looking for was what's the password listed there, because it's always amusing doing
Yeah.
presentations. But when you had secrets,
Yeah.
that was curious to me because I don't know what that is. Like, is there a credential store?
Yeah. So this is just it's just a paradigm. It's not, you can write any Python code you want. You can have your password shown in plain text in a notebook. That's not the best way to go about things from a security standpoint. The way I got around this was I made a portal item that is owned by me, owned by nobody else, that has key value pairs of SMTP email password, that password. From this standpoint, I get that server, that secrets CSV, and then from here, it's just a dictionary. I'm just looking up the key, and the value is actually at runtime being used, but totally separate from things. Yeah, it's a, yep. Right. Nope. Yeah, just paradigm. Like another option would be have an encrypted file at a file share or local on your GIS server, unencrypt it when you have runtime so you have it. Yeah. Anything else? Yeah.
With the broken link checker, is there some security in place that makes it impossible for you to just point it at the root of ArcGIS Online and tell everybody in the world what their broken links are?
So you're saying if when the notebook does a request saying, oh, if it's coming from a secret location that you don't want.
Well, no, I mean, it's getting a list of all the different maps and
Yep.
getting your layers.
Yep.
It's pointed at the directory or just online and just goes through everything.
So it only checks the one URL for whatever the web map is. So if you want to have a blacklist of things you don't want to ping, then you can create that blacklist, and then if you find that URL, just skip that so you're not actually sending the request out. It's just Python code that I wrote, so you can configure it for your needs, if that answers your question. Anyone else? Great. Well, thank you so much. I tried to smush a lot in, so I hope you got something out of it. My name is David. I'll be at the Python booth all week, so feel free to come by. And yeah, have a good rest of your Dev Summit. Thanks, everyone.